Okay, today we're going to start talking about the Constitution. Again, we just talked about the Articles of Confederation, the Constitutional Convention, which leads us into the Constitution. It's the oldest federal constitution in existence. It is 1789, obviously, is when it was ratified. It's a brief document of about 7,395 words, which is not a whole lot considering that it runs an entire country. And this also is going to include all the amendments as well. The other thing about the Constitution and the Founding Fathers wanted to make this happen this way is that it's very flexible. It's a living, breathing document. They wanted it to be able to be changed. They had foresight to understand that it would change throughout history and that they had to make it something that was able to change. So there's 6 basic principles we're going to talk about in the Constitution, touch base on before we get into the nuts and bolts of the Article 1. First one is federalism. Again, federalism, hopefully we know this already. This is the power divided between a federal government and a local government. Obviously, that's the federal government and state government. That's your federalism. Limited government. They wanted government to be limited in such ways. They did not want a strong, powerful government necessarily. Didn't they want that government limited and have checks and balances? Separation of powers. They wanted those powers separate. Again, if you recall from yesterday's lesson, talking about the Federalist Papers in number 10, if you look back and think about the factions, we wanted those powers to be separate so that no faction could take control of the entire government. If a faction took control of one branch of government, it would have 2 other ones still be more powerful than that one. The next one is checks and balances. These limit to each branch. They check each branch. The best one is coming up. You have the example to see with the president nominating Barrett for the Supreme Court. Again, that's a check and balance on them. The president cannot just appoint somebody. They have to nominate somebody, and then the Senate has to approve that nomination. Popular sovereignty, you'll hear a lot about that in your preamble if you haven't done it already. Video, you'll hear about the popular sovereignty. And then judicial review, which basically sets and gives the Supreme Court the ability to review matters dealing with the Constitution. All right, so we're going to talk about Article 1 here to start. There's 7 articles in the Constitution. As you saw on the previous slide, I have a mnemonic device to remember all 7 articles. I'll go over those real quick again. This is for, maybe not, I'll shut up. When we don't have open notes, it's lazy elephants jump slowly and sit readily. But we're going to start with the Article 1, which is legislative branch. The first section is not too important for us. It just gives legislative powers to Congress. Section 2 is an important one. It has the House of Representatives qualifications. So these are the 3 qualifications you need to cover in order to be in the House of Representatives. You have to be 25 years old. I'll be writing this down, what I'm saying here. 25 years old, a 7-year citizen in the United States, and you have to live in the state you're going to represent. So again, I'll repeat those. The House qualifications, 25 years old, 7-year citizen of the United States, and you have to live in the state you're going to represent. The Senate qualifications then in Section 3, again, I'd write these down. These are, you have to be 30 years old to be a senator. You have to be a 9-year citizen of the United States. And you have to live in the state you're going to represent. Now in the House, if you get elected to the House, you serve a 2-year term. And then you have to go up for re-election again every 2 years. If you're in the Senate, you are elected for a 6-year term. Don't get those confused with the citizenship qualifications. These are just terms when you get elected. In the Senate, you have a 6-year term. So for example, this year we are electing a senator in Iowa. It's Joni Ernst or Teresa Greenfield. You get an option there. If they get elected, it's every 6 years. So it's only 1/3 of the senators are up for re-election every 2 years. Okay. All right, section 4 talks about the time and manner of elections. This is set by Congress. This is the federal elections. I'll write this down. Are held on the first Tuesday after the first Monday in November of even-numbered years. I'll repeat that. The first Tuesday after the first Monday in November of even-numbered years. So therefore, we can never have an election on November 1st, on Tuesday, November 1st. It'll always have to be November 2nd. All right, section 5 talks about judging their own members, set their own rules. Section 6 talks about compensation and privileges. Section 7 talks about revenue bills. Revenue bills must originate in the House, but more importantly here, I want to talk about presidential veto. Again, another check and balance on the federal government, or on the president. If Congress passes a law, it has to go to the president to get signed. The president can veto that, which means he can make it not a law. Okay? But it doesn't stop there. It can go back to Congress, and Congress can override a presidential veto with two-thirds vote in each house. 2/3 vote in each house. So again, presidential veto, he can veto a bill, and then Congress can override it with a 2/3 veto. Doesn't happen very often, but the Constitution does give that ability to do so. The other thing I want you to write down in this one is called a pocket veto. Pocket veto. A pocket veto, this is where the president has sent a bill and he doesn't sign it or veto it. If he doesn't do either, after 10 days it becomes law. Now you're asking, why would he want to not sign it, or why would he want to not veto it? Well, it's a political game. You know, if I'm a president that talks about gun rights, and I'm big with the NRA, and there's a bill that comes up to me that says something about limiting guns, I may not want to sign it because I don't want to make the NRA mad, but I know it's good for the country, so therefore I won't sign it, and it'll become law. But that way I can then tell the NRA, well, I didn't sign it, so I didn't support it necessarily. So it's kind of a political way. That's the pocket veto. Okay? All right, section 8 talks about the powers of Congress. This is a big one, only in the sense because it basically gives the Congress the 27 powers that are listed there. So notice there I have in parentheses 27. There's only 27 powers expressly given to, or specifically given to, Congress. One of the big ones is Clause 18. So again, the Constitution has, you have the articles, you have the sections, and then you have clauses. So Clause 18 is known as the necessary and proper clause. It's also known as the elastic clause. So you think about elasticity, you think about stretching, elastic. This power here gives Congress the ability to use the power any way they want. They can fit other things into this power. So it allows them to stretch and maneuver and basically have other powers besides the ones they have there. Okay? It's also called the implied powers. So that's kind of a big one there. Section 9 says that they may not suspend the writ of habeas corpus. I'll post something with definitions of those. But a writ of habeas corpus, this is basically saying that the government has to tell you why you are being arrested. They cannot hold you without knowing that why you are being imprisoned. Okay. Great example of this was President Lincoln in the Civil War. He did suspend writ of habeas corpus, and he's allowed to do so because of rebellion. That's the only time you can suspend writ of habeas corpus is rebellion. Well, the South was rebelling against the North, so he took Southern sympathizers, those people that were favoring the South, and they lived in the North, he put them in prison. And he left them there, and he didn't have to say why. He didn't have to say why at all. Okay? Federal government may not pass a bill of attainder. This is a legislative act which would convict without trial. Again, I'll have you define these. They cannot pass an ex post facto law. Ex post facto law is a law that makes an act committed prior to that law illegal. So it applies a law retroactively. Example of this would be the old drinking age. The drinking age used to be 18. When the federal government changed it to 21, those people that were 18 already, before they changed the law, they then could still drink for those 3 years. They didn't have to wait until they were 21. So you can't apply a law retroactively. Okay? And the last thing here, for the federal government cannot have export taxes. Export taxes are taxes on goods going out of the country. Okay? And the last section is going to be section 10. This says that states are prohibited, or cannot, into doing these things. Entering into treaties, coining money, bills of attainder, ex post facto laws, import duties, so states cannot tax things coming into their states from other states or from other countries. So here you have that regulation of interstate trade we talked about in the Articles of Confederation, where states maybe were taxing other states' goods coming in. Okay, this prohibits them from doing so. And the states are prohibited from keeping troops and entering into compacts with other countries. Obviously, we don't want them having treaties or anything with China separately. We don't want Alabama to have a separate treaty or compact with Spain than what we already have. Okay. So that's Article 1. I know there's a lot in there. It's too bad that we're not here together to be able to do this, talk about it, but I will post, have you define those words, and, or maybe I think I have it on the Constitution thing, don't I? Yeah, I think I have those words, writ of habeas corpus, I'd define those on there as well. Okay. So this is Article 1 of the Constitution. We'll talk about the rest of them on Monday. We'll end that there.